WRQX, Washington. Now, with Spectrum, here's Tom Grooms.
You're listening to Spectrum on Mix 107.3 WRQX, Washington. I'm Thomas Grooms, and joining us in studio this morning, Mr. John Kolm, CEO with Team Results USA, and this morning that will be our focus. And John is president and CEO of this organization, a former intelligence officer himself. He has personally trained over 2,000 police officers. Team Results has conducted team workplace retreats for many state police forces, the U.S. Park Police, the U.S. Department of Defense, National Park Service, and dozens of others, including Toyota, Johnson & Johnson, and a whole lot more. But without further ado, John, good morning. Welcome to Spectrum.
Good morning, Tom.
Great to see you. The word team means so much when you're a police officer or a fireman, not just an athlete.
Absolutely, and indeed, it's the people you depend on. Cliched as it sounds, really, it's the person to the left of you and the person to the right of you. That's where help comes from. That's where loyalty comes from. And frankly, it's not much different in corporate teams either. It's simply that in the policing environment, the danger is often more apparent and more imminent.
The team training that you do, we're going to talk about some of the programs. For example, say I live in Greenbelt and we have a local police force and we'd like you to come out and address our officers. What would you do to get the morale going? I mean, give us an example here of how you approach this.
The most important thing to do, and I'd recommend this not just for my professional work or anyone's with police officers or anybody else, but anybody who has to address a group. If you're not sure how to talk to them, it's probably because you haven't taken the first step, which is to listen to them. Find out who they are, what they want, what's important to them. The magic word with people who work in uniform, with people who take risks on the behalf of us all every day, is credibility. There's absolutely no reason why they should listen to somebody who is not credible. Someone who's never been in danger themselves, someone who's never had to make a snap decision themselves. Why should they listen? We take great care to make sure that the person who goes and speaks to a group is somebody who's credible in that world. That's the essential step. So I'm a 5'11" guy who used to play rugby and likes to climb rocks and mountains. You wouldn't send me to run a program for the Kirov Ballet. They're all half my size. I have nothing in common with them. I've never danced in my life. I'm not credible in that world. It's no different with police officers. The phrase that they often use is, he or she has never seen an angry man. And what they mean is that you've never experienced the reality of the sharp end. So you have to make sure that you send them someone who knows how things are for them and how it really is.
John Kolm is with us, CEO with Team Results USA. That is our focus. Their mission, 202-257-5593 or teamresultsusa.com. And we know in any team situation, it is so important to communicate. When we look at the Redskins, when we look at the Nationals, morale, very important. Team spirit, we hear this in high school. But why is team training important for law enforcement officers?
Because they have to make decisions under such great pressure, usually in an environment where they can only rely on the person to the left of them and the person on the right of them. Now, if you had time to make the decisions that police officers make with the training, if you had leisure to sit down in an office, plan it out, think it through, well, this, that, and the other thing, therefore, this is what we should do, and these are considerations, and those are the risks, and maybe the other thing is a little bit more risky than it needs to be, so we'll do something else. If you had time to game all that out, the job of policing would be much easier, but they don't have time. Those snap decisions that absolutely turn team dynamics in one direction or the other take anywhere from 2 seconds to 2 minutes, and more often it's closer to the 2 seconds. So the only way in which decisions like that can be made good and reliably is through training, and that's why training is so important.
Unfortunately, this administration has had to weather the Secret Service investigation of today, and there are so many Secret Service employees today and past who are dedicated to their job and true professionals.
Well, and I'm glad you pointed that out, Tom, and it has to be said, I know some of these folks personally. They are just some of the best people by any standard that you could ever hope to meet. They're dedicated, they're patriotic, they're hardworking, they're very smart. They practice extensively to make the right decision, in their case, a fraction of a second. And when they're not working for the Secret Service, almost all of them are doing something with their community. They're working with autistic kids, they're training a soccer team. Community is their life, really. That's the kind of person that's attracted to that kind of profession.
So many times this slips through the cracks, John, in news coverage. That's why we hold our ascertainment hearings. I invited Kathy to come down. Kathy Lanier, Chief Lanier, was there in the House representing, and she agrees that there are a lot of good officers who do not get the credit. What they do in their off time, playing basketball, taking kids out shopping, looking after senior citizens in the neighborhood. You don't see this. You only hear about the cop that's out, trying to have a good time. But believe me, there are so many people dedicated to the community because that's why they take on the oath to begin with.
Exactly right. They certainly don't do it for the fame or the money. And as you get to work with these groups, and of course that really has been my whole professional life around these sorts of people, and it's not just police officers only, although that's what we're talking about right now, but there are many people in the government as well. The same should be said about the GSA. Spare a thought for all the dedicated people, the ones who work hard, never break the rules, work without reward, end their careers without thanks, and don't mind at all because that's what they signed up for. Those few occasionally who do the wrong thing become very evident, and the best way to weed them out is through peer groups. And again, that comes back to team dynamics.
You're listening to Spectrum. In studio this morning, Mr. John Kolm, CEO with Team Results USA. And if you want more info, 202-257-5593 or teamresultsusa.org. John is a former intelligence officer. He has personally trained over 2,000 police officers. Team Results has conducted team workplace retreats for so many state police forces, the U.S. Park Police, the U.S. Department of Defense, the National Park Service, and dozens of others, including Toyota and Johnson & Johnson. John knows about the importance of team performance, and his company focuses on non-traditional 21st century methods to increase team productivity. Now, I was speaking with our good friend, our mutual friend, the former Carter administration's press secretary, Miss Vicki Robb, and she told me that some of these team training seminars that you have are phenomenal. I mean, TV coverage should be given to this, John. I understand that we go back a few centuries. Is this true?
Absolutely.
The Sheriff of Nottingham, or what are we talking about here?
Well, it's a great step down for Vicki. She's gone from working for the President of the United States to working for Team Results USA these days, and many others, but she doesn't seem to mind, and she has been on a program with us. We know that, and people in leadership positions generally know that, you have to make it exciting, you have to make it an adventure. The one thing everybody at work wants is to be the star of their own personal story. So our programs are centred around that basic human need. There's no one at work, no one in their life that does not want to be the star of their own personal life story. They don't want to be a bit player. So we base a lot of our scenarios on one of the classic story arcs of all time. It goes far back beyond the Sheriff of Nottingham, actually. Can first be found in the Epic of Gilgamesh and is frequently found in the Holy Bible. And everywhere from the Epic of Gilgamesh all the way through to Terminators 1, 2 and 3. And it's this. It's the challenge, the refusal, the journey outward, and the journey home. So young John Connor, for example, in Terminator gets given a challenge. Save the world. He refuses. Don't be silly. I'm only a kid. The journey outward, he goes out to try to save the world. The journey home, he finds the Terminator, comes home in triumph. This is the first movie. That is a classic epic story arc. You'll find it in the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Epic of Gilgamesh, as I say, many of the stories in the Bible. So we think that taps into a basic human need. So we give them a job to do, Tom. It's as simple as that.
By them going through this training, it makes them better officers, better first responders.
That's absolutely the idea, and anyone who's been in the workforce for more than a short time will understand this very well. When you start at the working level, you're full of enthusiasm, and you're very, very keen, and you're young, and most importantly, you can focus on the nuts and bolts of your job day to day. But as you go through, you get senior, now you have to think about conflicting priorities and budgets and legitimately conflicting points of view between yourself and other senior people and maybe the folks you answer to, and pressures and politics and meetings you have to go to, and this you have to do and that you have to do. And it's very easy to wake up one morning and remember and forget, pardon me, that you've just let the team picture drift a little bit. We all do it. All human beings seem to do it. You do it, I do it, everybody does it. But about once a year, it's really important to come back and just reunify around a lot of those things that we probably already knew, but we need to remember them again. One of the things you'll often hear from teams, and I can't tell you, Tom, how many times I've heard this, and I'm not really speaking about police teams now, I want to emphasise that, but just generally corporate teams, is the comment, It's funny, you know, that we need you to come in here and help us be more productive because we work together really well when we're in a crisis. It's just when we're not in a crisis that the wheels come off. That, in many ways, is the hard thing. Training and teamwork and the sort of work we do does help groups be successful in a crisis. It is thrilling for us, even if the circumstance is bad, when they pull together in a crisis and do a wonderful job and save people as they're supposed to. But the biggest question to me is how do you put that excitement, that fun, that adventure, that story, that desire to get up and do something extraordinary into the everyday work? Because for most of us, even law enforcement, even flying a plane, mostly it's everyday work, and yet you have to be ready for that few instances in your life when it makes all the difference.
It's obvious that this training definitely makes the community safer because, as we said, the officers, the law enforcement officials are more alert.
Well, that's the game, really, Tom. And I mean, let's talk about money. Let's be honest about it, because anytime you hear a consultant, you think, oh yeah, sure, you know, great. Well, they would say what they're saying because they're in it to make money. The truth is, there are lots of things you could do for a living. There are lots of things I could do for a living. There are lots of things many of the listeners could do for a living. Why do we choose what we do? Because we think it does some good in the world and because we're good at it. And I have an absolute passion for, above all else, happiness at work. Life was not meant to be a long grey tunnel. The workplace was not meant to be boring. It was not meant to be a dreadful experience. We don't live very long. We need to make the workplace as successful an experience as we can for everyone.
Well, here comes the stinger, my friend. Recently, you know this, the GSA in trouble for hiring a team, building a bike at the rate of $75,000. I mean, what's your take on that?
That's absolutely right. Well, let's quickly background the folks in case they haven't been following the full insights of this. Tom, you're absolutely right. They hired a company, and here I'm working on information from the Inspector General's report, so it's not hearsay. Everybody in Team Results has read that report cover to cover. They hired a company for one afternoon to build a series of bikes for a total of $75,000, and if you do the math, that works out to $3,250 per bike. Then they gave the bikes away. It's great that they gave the bikes away, except that there is an issue about whether doing that was legal or not, and I wouldn't want to comment on it. But it's a shame in a way too, because those sorts of things ought to be done with a good charitable intent and not with taxpayers' money. When Team Results supports the building of a school in Haiti, we don't spend other people's money, we spend our own money. But the point that really needs to be made about this is, and I'll say it generically rather than specifically about the GSA, because there is still the possibility of legal action following on from the things that happened in GSA, I want to be very clear that I'm not commenting about the GSA specifically for that reason. But don't confuse the use of professionals to do legitimate training with people who actually need it that leads to a real, measurable and sustained productivity benefit. And all those words are important. Real, measurable, sustained productivity benefit. We're not the only ones doing this, but this is absolutely what you need to look for. Don't confuse that with the illegal hiring of unqualified people to do things that have absolutely nothing at all to do with productivity, even if they're represented as training. In fact, Tom, I have a word for this. I call it train-attainment. It's entertainment masquerading as training so that you can get your employer to pay for it. If you ask me, that's what happened in Las Vegas.
And it's up to us as employers, as managers, as supervisors to have the best and to give our employees the best. So as a company, we shine.
Absolutely. In fact, I keep thinking of the founder of ICANN, which is the organisation that gives us all of our internet addresses, all of our web addresses. And her famous quote is, in an economy like this where everything else is efficient, the last efficiency left is the human being. That's the last real competitive edge that's left.
You're listening to Spectrum on Mix 107.3. We'll be back with more right after this. You're listening to Spectrum on Mix 107.3 WRQX Washington. I'm Thomas Grooms. In studio this morning, Mr. John Kolm, CEO with Team Results USA, 202-257-5593, www.teamresultsusa.com. And for those who joined us late, John is a former intelligence officer himself and has personally trained over 2,000 police officers. Team Results has conducted team workplace retreats for so many police forces, state police, U.S. Park Police, the U.S. Department of Defense, National Park Service, and dozens of others, including the private sector and the corporate sector, Toyota, and Johnson & Johnson. John knows all the importance of team performance, and his company focuses on non-traditional 21st century methods to increase team productivity. And instead of playing games, John and his staff are changing the face of team retreats. And that is so important, too. You know, people once a year try to get the staff together and, I guess, reassess what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. And especially now, because we see the economy, it's floundering, isn't it, John? Tell it like it is.
I think if you ask most people in America, and we were at the GSA hearings actually in Congress, and some of the Congress people said it, the books may say the economy's turning around, but that's not what people in the street tell me. I would say, and I'm no expert on this, must emphasise that, but I don't think that most Americans, and I'm an American too, have personally seen a turnaround yet.
We know here in the Washington area, you know crime statistics. I mean, when we talk about law enforcement, you work with law enforcement officials, you work with private companies also. But as the economy gets bad, crime goes up. It's just the law of nature. So policemen are at risk more and more. Even giving a traffic ticket today, when Sheriff Biddle comes in from Falls Church, you know, his guys are at risk just giving a traffic ticket on Route 7.
Yes, and in fact, police officers will tell you that's just about the most dangerous thing they do. The two most dangerous things they do, in fact, are traffic stops, because you never know what you're going to get, and domestic disputes, because you never know how desperate people will be.
And we have people going around impersonating police officers, pulling people over. So there's a lot of elements out there that they have to deal with. And that's why you're here this morning, to make the community safe and, of course, to build a stronger country.
Absolutely.
So I suggest everyone log on to your website, because we say it all the time, knowledge is power. www.teamresultsusa.com. If someone would like you to come out and address a student body maybe when school gets back in session, are you available, or someone from your staff?
Oh, totally, Tom. I do this all the time. I absolutely love doing it. And we have some other people as well in the company who are equally enthusiastic and also are very happy to speak to groups, small or large.
And I should mention that Crocodile Charlie and the Holy Grail, a work of yours, and Peter Ring, how to find your own answers at work and in life. Tell us a little bit about this.
Certainly. Peter Ring is a retired Air Force fighter pilot. He flew twice the speed of sound fighters his whole life. So in some ways, and it's been said by others, we're probably two of the most unlikely people in the world to start a company that has to do with teamwork and productivity and happiness at work, because we're probably two of the least touchy-feely people you would ever hope to meet. One fine day, we just finished one of our programs, these programs that we try to run that are completely innovative and 21st century and not based on the old team-building games that have actually been around since the end of World War II, believe it or not. We just finished a very successful program. The bus had disappeared down the road in a big cloud of dust. We were exhaling, because you're pretty tired after these things if you've done your job properly. Peter Ring looked out the window across acres and acres of beautiful green retreat where we were. In front of him were a pile of notes that the group had made during the program, and Peter said, you know, wouldn't it be great if we could compile all these notes that people have produced over the years, troll through them, pick out the things that aren't cliched and are new, and put them in a book? And I said, yeah, it'd be great. Someone should do that. Peter said, yeah, someone should do that. Yeah, someone should do that. Eventually we realised someone was us. So we started with a big pile of notes from about 6 years' worth of retreats with teams. We went through all the notes, and we pulled out from those 32 things that we thought really needed to still be said in the world. 32 chapters was a bit much, so we turned it into 2 points per chapter. And it's really the story of a guy named Charlie Kingmore, who goes on one of these adventures that we talked about before, Tom, and travels around the world looking for some answers about the workplace.
Crocodile Charlie and the Holy Grail, available online?
Available online, Amazon.com, any number of resellers, also in a talking book version if that's your pleasure.
There has to be a personal story, John, very quickly, how you became the CEO of Team Results USA.
Absolutely. The personal story is that I was, as previously mentioned, an intelligence officer. I came back from overseas to find, far from a warm welcome, that people had pretty much forgotten I existed. Diplomats and people who have done long terms overseas will be familiar with this feeling. And they gave me a job that nobody else wanted, which was to send a team somewhere rather nasty to do something a little bit dangerous that was very, very important, and for a short time, and they did not permit me to go with the team for a number of good reasons. I got very worried about their team dynamics. I thought, we can train them, we can select good people, but what if they start fighting and arguing? What if they get out of reality? What if one person wants to punch another person? They're in the jungle. The jungle is very hard on your nerves. It's very fraying to even the most calm person. What if somebody has a toothache and they're in a bad mood? What if they manage their own comfort and make just slightly less than the maximum effort they could make and come back with a result that's slightly less than it should be? So at that point I thought, well, what in the world are we going to do? Do we send them to a training class? No, they'll go to sleep. Do we send them to a traditional team building program? No, they're not going to learn anything from building the Tower of Hanoi out of matchsticks. Do we just do nothing? No, that's too risky. So I found Peter Ring, and the two of us, being overconfident, like fighter pilots and intelligence officers are, thought, well, we can do much better ourselves. And we came up with the very first team program. Tom, we just had absolutely no idea what we were doing. But we muddled through and were more successful than we expected, and one thing led to another.
And the results are here for you today, ladies and gentlemen. TeamResultsUSA.com or 202-257-5593. And before we wrap up, for our young listeners, people who are just getting out of high school, just getting out of college, the world is ahead of them. You know it's a tough life, but there are vocations out there, there are careers in law enforcement, but what advice do you give to those who are just, saying, hey, I can't find a job. I've got my degree, but I can't find a job. What do I do?
I once heard Penn and Teller interviewed, Tom. Somebody asked them, what's your success? Why are you so much more successful as magicians than anybody else? What are your tricks? And Penn Gillette, who's the one who speaks in that group, said the trick is that there is no trick. The trick, in fact, no one wants to hear this, but the safe is empty. Our secret is insanity. We just work 50 times harder than any sane person would ever consider working on things. That's why we're successful. I would say to those people that your unique skill should be the same. It should be a level of passion that most sane people would not even consider. And I can tell you from personal experience and from having worked with a lot of very successful people, CEOs, entrepreneurs and all the rest of it, that's what their secret is. It's passion.
And the new businesses that are just starting up, we applaud them because I've had a few people come in who have started businesses in this down economy.
There are people right now who have taken advantage of the fact that the economy's down, and they will become immensely successful by leveraging the reality that's out there. So I would urge people, it's easy to be despondent. Erica Jong said this. She wrote Fear of Flying quite a few years ago and was quite famous for that. Anybody, this is Erica Jong speaking, not me, anybody can feel pain, anybody can despair, anybody can feel disrespected, anybody can be demoralised. That's easy. The world is full of things that can make us feel that way, but the really difficult thing is to find joy and happiness and success and passion and purpose. And you absolutely can if you want to.
Would you like to add anything in conclusion about Team Results USA before we wrap up?
Well, that's a dangerous question, Tom. Really, I would just like to have people feel very welcome to get in touch and say, hi, we're not a law firm. You shouldn't think that the first thing we're trying to do is make money from you. I need no encouragement to have coffee with people. If you have a work team, if you're thinking about your work team, aren't totally satisfied with the options you can see right now, give us a call. I'd be more than happy to help. Maybe we can help you. Maybe we can just point you in the right direction. But either way, it's a pleasure and it's my passion.
And maybe we'll get a Vegemite sandwich, right?
Yes. This whole interview, actually, just as a special for your listeners, Tom, has been done in an Australian accent. And that's because I have great difficulty in speaking in any other kind of accent. The answer to that is I fell in love with an American girl. And so here I am as a US citizen today.
Well, we're proud to have you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being on the team, and thank Vicky Robb for coordinating this interview. And please come back, keep us posted with an update on how we're doing, and we'll keep looking for those results, okay?
With pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Mr. John Kolm, CEO with Team Results USA.